I'll now call to order the City County Council meeting for Monday, February the 22nd, 2021, and we will begin our meeting with the prayer and Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilor Adamson. Councilor Adamson.
Thank you, President Osley. Rabbi Justin Kerber is trying to sign on. I'm not sure if he's
can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do want to introduce Rabbi Justin Kerber of the congregation Beth Shalom to do today's opening prayer. Rabbi?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks. I would like to thank you for the invitation, and I submit this invitation humbly with the hope everyone on the call can affirm what I have to say with a whole heart. May these city councilors, their advisors, and all who exercise just and rightful authority on behalf of the city of Indianapolis be blessed with insight, wisdom, and generosity. May our citizens, every gender, race, creed, and identity, forge a common bond and unity of purpose so that we may safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are the true pride and glory of our city, our state, and our nation. May we all seek the well-being of our city and labor upon its behalf, for in its prosperity shall we all prosper. May we administer nothing but truth, justice, and peace within our gates. Let us say, Amen.
And now the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Vice President Adamson. Madam Clerk, please conduct a voice roll call, and councilors please signify by stating your name and answering present following the clerk's reading of your name so that we have a clear record of who is in attendance. Please note that Chairman Ray has asked to be excused from our meeting tonight. So, Madam Clerk, please proceed with roll call.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Adamson.
Councilor Adamson, present.
Councilor Ane.
Councilor Ane, present.
Councilor Bain.
Councilor Bain, present.
Councilor Barth. Councilor Barth.
Barth, present.
Thank you. Councilor Boots. Councilor Boots.
Boots, present.
Thank you. Councilor Brown.
Councilor Brown, present.
Councilor Carlino.
Councilor Carlino, present.
Councilor Dilk.
Councilor Dilk, present.
Councilor Ethan Evans.
Councilor Ethan Evans, present.
Councilor Jared Evans.
Councilor Jared Evans, present.
Councilor Graves.
Councilor Graves, present.
Councilor Gray.
Councilor Gray, present.
Councilor Hart.
Councilor Hart, present.
Councilor Jackson.
Councilor Jackson, present.
Councilor Jones.
Councilor Jones, present.
Councilor Larison.
Councilor Larison, present.
Councilor Lewis.
Councilor Lewis, present.
Councilor Mascari.
Councilor Mascari, present.
Councilor McCormick.
McCormick, present.
Councilor Mowry.
Councilor Mowry, present.
Councilor Oliver. Councilor Oliver. Oliver. I see Counselor Oliver on the line. I don't know if he's having audio issues. Counselor Osley,
Counselor Osley, present.
Counselor Potts,
Counselor Potts, present.
Counselor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, present.
Thank you. I'll try Counselor Oliver again. Counselor
Oliver present.
Thank you. Mr. President, we have 24 counselors.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. We have a quorum. We have no independent guests this evening, so the next item on our agenda is official communications. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, you are hereby notified that regular meetings of the City County Council and Police, Fire, and Solid Waste Collection Special Service District Councils will be held electronically and in the City County Building in the Council Chambers on Monday, February 22nd, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. The purposes of such meetings being to conduct any and all business that may properly come before the regular meetings of the councils. Sincerely, Bob Osley, President, City County Council. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to the laws of the state of Indiana, I cause to be published in the Court and Commercial Record and in the Indianapolis Star on Friday, February 5th, 2021, a copy of a notice of a public hearing on proposal numbers 52 through 54, 2021, said hearing to be held on Monday, February 22nd, 2021 at 7 o'clock p.m. in the Public Assembly Room of the City County Building. Respectfully, Sarita Hughes, Clerk of the City County Council. Ladies and gentlemen, I have approved with my signature and delivered this day to the Clerk of the City County Council, Sarita Hughes, the following ordinances. Fiscal Ordinance numbers 1 through 5, General Ordinance number 3, General Resolution number 1, Special Resolutions numbers 10 through 14. Joseph H. Hoxat, Mayor. Mr. President, this concludes the official communications.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have consent?
Consent.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is approval of journals for February the 1st, 2021. Do I have consent?
Consent.
Thank you. We'll now proceed to presentation of petitions, memorials, special resolutions, and council resolutions. And the first item on our agenda is proposal number 21, which recognizes the Lawrence North High School women's basketball team on winning the 2020 IHSAA 4A state title. Who will be presenting this evening? All right, Councilor Evans.
Thank you, President Osley. It will be myself, Councilor Boots, and Councilor Brown. And we also have a couple of special guests as well on the line. So I will be introduce Principal of Lawrence North, Brett Krausor, and Coach Michael Penrose are joining us this evening for the reading of the special resolution honoring the 2020 Lady Wildcats state championship team. So I'll be reading the special resolution. So proposal number 21, City County Council Special Resolution number 21. A special resolution recognizing the Lawrence North High School women's basketball team on winning the 2020 IHSAA 4A state title. Whereas Lawrence North women's basketball team has had a history of success not only this year, but also in previous years, proving themselves to be great athletes who are able to work together as a team to accomplish an incredible feat.
And whereas the Wildcats defeated the Northwestern Tigers, their amazing commitment to teamwork, selflessness, and dedication to the team led them to a 59-56 victory. And whereas the Wildcats shot 51%, hitting a finals record of 10 shots from beyond the arc in a remarkable team effort, with Jayla Smith scoring 22 points, Katie Davidson scoring 10, Kristen Young setting a 4A finals record with 11 assists, Kaylin Irvin hitting 3 shots from beyond the arc, and Lauren Gunn making 6 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Whereas, recognizing the amazing efforts of Kristen Young and Katie Davidson were named to the IBCA Supreme 15 All-State Team, and Jayla Smith, who was named to the Supreme 15 Junior All-State Team, and
whereas the Wildcats marched into victory with team members, and I apologize in advance for any mispronunciations of these names, Christian Young, Manatasia McAllister, Kaylin Irvin, Caitlin Fassbender, Sydney Hughes, Atania Smith, Katie Davidson, Monica Williams, Lauren Gunn, Anijah Graves, Lanaya Early, Michaela Washington Cobb, Jayla Smith, Chiroa Walker, Justice Odom, along with head coach Chris Giffen, athletic director Mike Penrose, assistant athletic director Jim Zeller, principal Brett Crocher, and superintendent Dr. Sean Smith. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City County Council of the City of Indianapolis and of Marion County, Indiana.
Section 1, the Indianapolis City County Council proudly recognized the Lawrence North Wildcats women's basketball team as the 4A Class State Champions.
Section 2, the council congratulates the players, parents, coaches, and staff on an incredibly successful season and wishes them their continued success in their future endeavors, both collectively and individually. Section 3, the mayor is invited to join in this resolution by affixing his signature here too. Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force in effect upon adoption and compliance with IC 36-3-4-14. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
All right, so the motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Councilor Ethan Evans.
Thank you, President Osley. As an alumni of Lawrence North myself, I'm so very proud of the achievements of fellow alumnus in both athletics and academics. And as obviously seen, the 2020 Lady Wildcats team has excelled extremely in both. And I'd like to thank Principal Brett Krauser and Athletic Director Michael Penrose so much for taking the time to be here tonight. And if they'd like to take a few moments and speak a little bit about last year's season and the team, I'd like to give them a few moments, if that's okay.
That'd be perfectly fine, Councilor Evans.
Thank you, Councilman Evans, Councilman Brooks, and Councilperson Brown. I appreciate this. As principal of Lawrence North High School, I can't be more proud of a group of young ladies and our coach. Coach Chris Giffen couldn't be with us here tonight as a result of being down at Southport with our 7th and 8th graders who were in the championships of the Marion County. The tradition just continues, but not just on the court, in the classroom. These young ladies are just amazing people. And I think that's what we value right now. And that's what high school athletics provides for our children. And we appreciate you and thank you for continuing to allow our students to compete this year through these very difficult times. And so we thank you for what you're doing and thank you for this honor. And we are privileged tonight.
Thank you, sir. Are there additional comments from councilors? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Councilor Jackson wanted to
Any
say
opposed?
something. I didn't know if you saw my hand.
No, I missed that. Well, we'll finish the vote and we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Any opposed, please signify by saying nay. All right, the motion carries. And back to the speakers. Chairwoman Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Congratulations, Lawrence North. I am too, Wildcats. I am too an alumni of Lawrence North, although I'm a proud graduate of Arlington High School. So I don't want to mistake and say that, but I love Lawrence North as well. And if it would be, please, the sponsors, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor. I like my time there, and I have many friends to this day of 30 years from being there. I'm telling my age at Lawrence North. So thank you very much. Congratulations.
Councilor Gray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to say that those young athletes have made their parents very proud. I know some of those young athletes and some of their parents. So I want to say kudos to them, kudos to the coaching staff, and kudos to the leadership, because it does take all of those parties to come home with the state championship.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments? All right, very good. And want to thank Mr. Kozer for visiting with us. The next item on the agenda is proposal number 94, which recognizes the service of educators throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and urging policymakers to prioritize teacher vaccination. Councilors Carlino and McCormick.
Hi, thank you, Mr. President. I, along with Councilor Carlino and some of our colleagues, are going to offer this resolution. A resolution recognizing the service of teachers and educational staff throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and urging policymakers to provide vaccines for these people. Whereas the United States public education systems plays a unique and critical role in the functioning of our community, our society, and our democracy. And whereas that system is facing unprecedented challenges due to the global coronavirus pandemic, including critical shortages of full-time and substitute teachers due to COVID-19 exposure, illness, and even death. And
whereas in November of 2020, the Indianapolis Star reported that across central Indiana, staffing shortages were so dire in some schools that some administrators were having to choose between closing school buildings and asking teachers who had been exposed to COVID-19 to keep working without the recommended quarantine period. While in virtually all schools, teachers have been asked to take on more classes and duties. And
whereas throughout the pandemic, K through 12 teachers, administrators, media specialists, school social workers, coaches, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, and all manner of educational support staff have functioned as essential workers, returning to work after COVID shutdowns long before many other professions, and often without the necessary PPE or procedures in place to ensure their safety. And
whereas the AARP reported in 2020 that more than 70% of our nation's 370,000 school bus drivers are over 55 years old, making them more vulnerable to the coronavirus. And whereas these bus drivers spend hours every workday in an enclosed space with children of all ages. And
whereas school custodians, cafeteria workers, and bus drivers face some of the greatest risks for virus exposure among all educational workers, but are typically paid much less for their work and often lack health insurance. While at the same time, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reports these jobs employ high concentrations of Black and Hispanic workers, groups known to be disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And
Councilor Evans.
Whereas researchers at Education Week reported that as of February 9th, 2021, 740 active and retired K-12 educators and personnel have died of COVID-19, a number that doesn't include complete counts from districts that don't share data
educators who have survived with lingering COVID-related health issues, or loved ones who've caught the virus from them and who have died. And
whereas the Indiana State Department of Health reports that since the start of the pandemic, nearly 5,500 teachers and another 6,300 school staff have tested positive for COVID-19. A figure that also does not include Indiana's 290 K through 12 schools who have chosen not to report cases to the state. And
whereas the Kaiser Family Foundation reported last year that 1 in 4 U.S. teachers, nearly 1.5 million educators, have pre-existing conditions that increase their risk of serious illnesses from COVID-19, while countless others live with immunocompromised loved ones, and
whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommends that teachers, support staff, and daycare workers be considered frontline essential workers and included Phase 1B of state's vaccination plans. And
whereas Indiana entered Phase 1B on February 1st, 2021, but 3 days later, the Indianapolis Star reported that there is no timeline on when Indiana's teachers will be eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine, even as state officials push schools to offer more in-person instruction and surrounding states have begun vaccinating their own educator workforces. And
whereas, as of February 11th, 2021, at least 28 states, the District of Columbia, and Puerto Rico have made some or all teachers eligible to receive the coronavirus vaccine, and Indiana's neighboring states of Illinois, Michigan, Ohio, and Kentucky are currently vaccinating teachers.
Be it resolved by the City County Council of the City of Indianapolis and of Marion County, Indiana. Section 1, the council calls on Indiana's policymakers to prioritize COVID-19 vaccination of K-12 educators and staff as soon as sufficient vaccine supply is available. Section 2, the council likewise urges our partners in public health to carefully consider the age and racial makeup of education workers to ensure equitable distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine. Section 3, the council encourages Indiana's education leaders to provide our K-12 schools with the resources to provide on-site COVID testing for teachers and school staff to ensure accurate reporting of school infection rates and support infection control measures. Section 4, until those resources become available, the council urges Marion County's K-12 teachers and staff to regularly access community-based COVID testing to measure and mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in our school settings. Section 5, the mayor is invited to join this resolution by affixing his signature here too. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Very good. The motion's been properly moved and seconded. Comments from councilors? Councilor McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted this, I know for Councilor Carlino and many of us, this was an important effort to make sure that we are doing the best we can to make sure that our school staff, bus drivers, and all of our school teachers are being heard. And so we want to use this platform to have our voice and know that we are fighting for them and making an effort to keep them all safe and healthy while they are educating our young children and families.
Very good. Councilor Carlino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just wanted to encourage my colleagues to reach out to their constituencies and have any school personnel who are eligible to get on the wait list if they're interested at their local pharmacy, grocery store. We just learned this evening Meijer will soon be offering vaccines, and to just really support that standby list. If you are next up in line, you're eligible here soon, those of you 50 and up, reach out. And if you're able to translate into other languages or reach out to your various groups, clubs, and churches to really make sure that we're having an equitable, multicultural approach to getting folks in line, I think that would be great, because then, I think that would mean the sooner we get back to safe schools and operating Indianapolis in business as usual. So thank you all, and thank you to all of our education workers.
Thank you very much. Chairwoman Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ditto what Councilors McCormick and Carlino said. In addition to that, I also support this special resolution proposal because I attended and was a guest on the Warren Township District's legislative forum that they have every year. And one of the things that administration and especially school and faculty teachers asked me to do from a counselor. I was one of the only counselors that could make that forum for the area. And there were senators there was across the Market Street were there, and there were representatives there. They asked, could we help them get on the list to get vaccinated? That was the top on the, they asked for two things. Pay increases was one, and vaccinations, or the two priorities that they had a list of things, but their top priorities were pay increase and vaccinations is what their priority. So that's why this is very important to me to support and be a co-sponsor for. Thank you, Mr. President.
Good, thank you. Councilor Boots.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a quick point, just to kind of reiterate what everyone preceding me has said, and that is the importance of getting our schools back up to speed. I think is an obvious low-hanging piece of fruit, and I find it borderline oxymoron that the state is emphasizing trying to get back, but will not yet select educators and school staff as a priority group. We are, as we heard in the proposal, the minority in the country in this, and it's embarrassing that we have not put education in the forefront. It has a inequitable, severe impact on the unemployment rate for young mothers, particularly those in the minority communities. And I think it is an economic development tool as well as a public health tool that schools get back full staffed safely as quickly as possible. And I do seriously encourage the state health officials to prioritize the teachers and education staff as soon as possible. Thank you.
All right. Any additional comments from councilors? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Please signify by nay. All right, the motion carries. Any additional comments from speakers? And seeing none, we'll proceed then to the next item on our agenda, which is proposal number 95, which recognizes Donald Davidson upon his retirement as a historian for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I believe that's Councilor Carlino.
It is. Thank you, Mr. President. Unfortunately, Mr. Davidson is not able to join us this evening. Therefore, I move that we postpone proposal number 45 to our next meeting.
Second.
Thank you.
Right, that's been properly moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay? All right, very good. That motion carries. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 108, which recognizes the service of Indianapolis public transit workers, including bus drivers, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and urging policymakers to prioritize vaccinations for these workers. I believe that's Chairwoman Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is proposal 108. And at this time, I have colleagues joining me to read this proposal. It says that Councilor McCormick is a co-sponsor, but we do have several that was not able to make the deadline. If you could, at this time, go ahead and start reading the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman Jackson. Tonight, we offer a special resolution recognizing the service of Indianapolis public transit workers, including bus drivers, throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and we are urging policymakers to prioritize vaccinations for these workers. Whereas every segment of American society, individuals, families, communities, and businesses benefits from safe, reliable public transportation, which research demonstrates creates jobs, eases traffic congestion, promotes a cleaner environment, and increases the value of nearby homes. And
whereas professional coach operators for public transit systems nationwide and here in Indianapolis play an essential role in keeping our economy going, but face daily risks of contracting the coronavirus while spending a majority of their workday in a confined space with limited air ventilation, transporting many of our city's other essential workers. And whereas even during the COVID-19 pandemic, Indigo professional coach operators and frontline employees safely conducted nearly 4.75 million passenger trips in 2020. They also delivered more than 30,000 face masks to local residents free of charge and partnered with Flanner House, MLK Center, and Northwest Response Team to deliver meals to Indianapolis families through its food pantry partnership. And
whereas it is critically important to protect the health and safety of Indigo's professional coach operators and frontline employees who have kept our communities running during the pandemic. And whereas Marion County professional coach operators and other frontline transit employees have demonstrated tremendous courage and an unwavering commitment throughout the global COVID-19 pandemic to ensure that safe and critical public transportation services operate seamlessly for the Indianapolis and Marion County communities.
And whereas fully 73% of Indigo's workforce is comprised of Black and Hispanic or Latino workers, groups known to be disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. And whereas Black and Hispanic or Latino residents make up more than 60% of Indigo's ridership, and whereas 49% of Indigo's riders report having no vehicle available in their household, though 71% are employed and 76% are from households that earn less than $35,000 annually. Indigo workers and drivers play a crucial role in our community's efforts to dismantle racial and socioeconomic disparities. And
whereas the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention identifies public transit workers as frontline essential workers and recommends their inclusion in Phase 1B of the state's vaccination plan. And whereas Indiana entered Phase 1B on February 1st, 2021, but to date, there is no clear plan for vaccination of Indiana public transit workers. Now, therefore,
be it resolved by the City County Council of the City of Indianapolis and Marion County, Section 1. The City County Council calls on Indiana's policymakers to prioritize COVID-19 vaccination for public transit workers as soon as sufficient vaccine supply is available. Section 2, the Council likewise urges our partners in public health to carefully consider the age and racial makeup of transit workers to ensure equitable distribution of the COVID-19 vaccine. Section 3, the Council urges Marion County's public transit workers to regularly assess community-based COVID testing to measure and mitigate the spread of COVID-19 in transit settings. Section 4, the mayor is invited to join in this resolution by fixing his signature hereto. Section 5, this resolution shall be in full force and effect upon adoption and compliance with IC 36-4-14 on this day of February 22nd, 2021. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Chairwoman Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President, for the opportunity to speak. I'm so honored that my colleagues have joined me as co-sponsors tonight Councilor McCormick, Councilor Graves, Councilor Brown, Councilor Carlino, and Councilor Boots. It's an honor to put this special resolution forward, encouraging our state our state colleagues to and our public health officials to prioritize our public transit operators, specifically Indigo drivers, to be prioritized and put on the list for vaccinations. They too have come to us and asked for assistance in this, and we understand the plight that's going on at the state capitol now. We don't want to ruffle any feathers, but we should also be able to advocate and voice and be voices on behalf of those in need. And our sisters and brothers that are coach operated drivers are in need. Their families and children are in need. They put their lives on risk every day for us, for those that they transport, specifically those that are trying just to get to work or to a doctor's appointment or to access food. So we encourage you and we urge you, those at state capitol and those in public health, if you could see fit, when those vaccines do become available, we ask for our teachers as well as our Indigo public operator drivers to be put on that list. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate it.
Very good. Councilor Carlino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just can't help but think about how excited we all are that we get to see some business coming in to our city next month with the basketball tournament. And I know with the red line and ease of access getting to some of these points, folks will be using our public transit. We want them to, and we want our public transit workers to be protected and safe in this process. So thank you so much, Chairwoman Jackson, for bringing this forward and for raising awareness. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor, and again, cannot thank our transit workers enough, even working through the snow that we had last week. You continue to just shine, and many of them have decades and decades of service, and they continue to just do the work for us, and I appreciate them, and encourage our state leaders to take a closer look at that 1B piece. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Councilor McCormick.
Thank you again, Mr. President. I just want to also just echo what my colleagues have said, especially Chairwoman Jackson. You know, we're not trying to ruffle feathers, but we were elected to advocate and lead and be the voice for the people of Indianapolis, the residents of our community. And this is what we're hearing is important to them. And so we just want to make sure that people know that we're doing this. So for the voices that aren't being heard. And so I'm proud to do this, and thank you for doing this along with our teachers. You know, anyone who is serving our community in a mandatory position, we just need to look at that phase 1B and those recommendations. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Ethan Evans.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just also want to echo all my colleagues and Chairwoman Jackson. I think it's, a much needed proposal and call to action, and I would also like to be added as a co-sponsor to this. So thank you.
Vice President Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also wanted to echo my thanks for this resolution, this important work and recognition of the important role of transit workers, and I would like to be added as a co-sponsor as well. Thank you.
Very good. Right, thank you. Any additional comments from councilors? Seeing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Signify by nay. All right, the motion carries. Comments from councilors? All right, very good. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda now is proposal number 13, referred to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 13, 2021, approves the mayor's appointment of Randall Taylor as the Chief of Police for the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. Chief Taylor stated that Indianapolis has seen a historic level of violence and homicides and non-fatal shootings over the last year as the community looks at IMPD to reduce the violence and protect the neighborhoods. He feels that burden every day. He said that working with the Indianapolis community, IMPD has achieved the following: implementing of the body-worn cameras, civilian-led use of force review board, modernization of the use of force policy, the abandoning of the no-knock warrants, and an update to their K-9 unit. Chief Taylor also said that in 2021, he and IMPD have 9 priorities that include accountability, improving data collection, refining training, hiring and recruiting, violent crime reduction strategy, refining training, diverse workforce, and focusing on behavioral health and wellness. Councilor Ronay moved, seconded by Councilor Scary. Senate Proposal number 13 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. The motion carried by a vote of 12-0. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
All right, the motion has been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Councilor Graves.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just have a question for the chief, if that's okay. Just maybe a question or two. If that's okay.
Chief is on the line.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure the chief is on the line. Does anyone know if Chief Taylor is on the line this evening?
I do not see him. I will try to get in contact.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Councilor Graves, in the meantime, was there a comment that you wanted to make? If we don't reach
no, I really
Chief
wanted
Taylor.
to just kind of ask the chief. I'm very excited about this appointment, but I did have some important questions that I wanted to directly ask him as he assumes this role.
All right. All right, very good. We'll come back. Are there additional questions or comments on proposal number 13? Councilor Boots.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief comment to show my support for Chief Taylor. And while our actions on behalf of the council sometimes be characterized as being anti-police or anti-Chief Taylor, I wholeheartedly disagree with that characterization. Everything that at least personally I do is in the furtherance of building the trust and respect that the IMPD deserves, and I will do all in my power to support what we do on behalf of the IMPD to build the trust that the community needs. That will, I think, further interests of the entire community and address some of the societal issues that we keep facing that one man and one police department cannot solve. So I just want to reiterate my support for Chief Taylor. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any additional comments on proposal number 13?
Mr. President.
Chairman Oliver.
Yes, I'd like to speak on behalf of Chief Taylor. Since I've been on the council under several police chiefs, and they've all been great. Come up through the ranks, all of them. And Chief Taylor certainly followed them and coming up through the ranks. Since he's been chief, even before he was chief, I know him a little bit, a lot more since he became chief. He's accessible to the community. He's all over responding and presenting himself to any and all neighborhood groups, associations, individuals, and his staff, his deputy chiefs. They're accessible. The ones he appointed to serve under directly under him. And as far as the apprehension, they're doing that. Some unsolved crimes that in the past, it innovated some things to try to improve upon that. But it takes, as we found out, it takes cooperation from many of us that may have knowledge or information about what's going on in our city by certain individuals. And it kind of hampers sometimes the investigation taking place and being successful. But Chief Taylor, the communicator to the community, and the community communicates back to him. The various district meetings that he had, still have him, that the community come to and talk to him and his staff. I won't say it's a first, but it's certainly
one that of this magnitude has not existed since I've been on the council. So with that, I give him kudos for doing that, because he is accessible, not just to me as a counselor, but holding these meetings up close in the community. He himself and his deputy chiefs being present is pretty astounding. So I like that. So with that, I certainly support his recommitment to the IMPD, and of course his reconfirmation, and I support that also. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. Councilor Ethan Evans.
Thank you, Mr. President. I supported out of committee the nomination, and I'll be supporting it in this vote. The appointment for Chief Taylor. Spoken to him numerous times, made conversations. I did just want to make one comment in remembrance of a few years back when Chief Height was still police chief. There was a press conference that was held when the very first body cameras were on a trial basis. And it was just a few days after a police and an officer involved shooting took place, and it was on body camera video at the time. And I am hopeful going forward that we can have similar transparency with the new body cameras that have been rolled out, where it can be that fast of a turnaround for press, for the public knowledge, for building trust and confidence in our police force and back in the community, as it had been those years ago when it first happened. So that's what I'm hopeful can happen. It happened, it could happen again. So that's what I can hope for. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilor. Any additional comments from councilors? Councilor Graves.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd just like to say thank you to the mayor for this appointment. I mean, he made the right selection at this point. We've faced a lot in our community, and Chief Taylor has been right there front and center, as my colleagues have already mentioned, being part of our community. One of the commitments that I made to my district, as I assumed this role, was to bridge that gap between law enforcement and our community, particularly my Black community. And Chief Taylor's made it very simple and easy for me to access him, talk with him. He's made his district commanders very accessible. I love the transparency. We've got a few hurdles that I want to continue to jump, but I'm very excited about being able to support this appointment.
Very good, thank you. It does not look like we were able to reach Chief Taylor in time.
No problem. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So the motion's been properly moved and seconded. If there are no additional comments from councilors, I'd like to ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk on proposal number 13.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Adamson.
Councilor Adamson, aye.
Councilor Ane.
Councilor Ane, aye.
Councilor Bain.
Councilor Bain, aye.
Councilor Barth.
Barth, aye.
Councilor Boots.
Councilor Boots, aye.
Councilor Brown.
Councilor Brown, aye.
Councilor Carlino.
Councilor Carlino, aye.
Councilor Dilk.
Councilor Dilk, aye.
Councilor Ethan Evans.
Councilor Ethan Evans, aye.
Councilor Jared Evans.
Councilor Jared Evans, aye.
Councilor Graves.
Councilor Graves, aye.
Councilor Gray.
Councilor Gray, aye.
Councilor Hart.
Councilor Hart, aye.
Councilor Jackson.
Council Jackson, aye.
Councilor Jones.
Councilor Jones, aye.
Councilor Larison.
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis.
Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari.
Counselor Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick.
McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry.
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osley.
Counselor Osley, aye.
Counselor Potts.
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 14, referred to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 14, 2021, approves the mayor's appointment of Ernest V. Malone as the chief of the Indianapolis Fire Department. Chief Malone said that he is honored to be considered for appointment for the chief of IFD. He said that he enjoys the opportunity to continue serving as chief. It's been a privilege to work with the men and women of IFD. Chief Malone said that IFD has completed a 5-year strategic master plan last year. They have started and going to hire a recruit class of 59 individuals on February the 22nd, 2021, and that class is 32% minorities and female. He said they are on track with their 10-year apparatus replacement plan, which includes 6 engines and 4 ladders, which is approximately $7.2 million. Chief Malone said they are also continuing with their 20-year station replacement strategy. Councilor Ane moved, second by Councilor Boots, to send proposal 14 to the full council. They do pass recommendation. Motion carried by a vote of 12-0 for the chief. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Very good. All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. President.
I'd like to proceed.
Councilor Gray.
Yes, Chairman Gray.
Yes, I'd just like to share a few words for Chief Malone. I've known him ever since he was a private, came on the job. I knew from day one that he had a vision to do big and great things. And he has not let us down over at the Indianapolis Fire Department. He has brought us up to a level where we've never been before. And under his leadership, I'm sure that we will continue to grow. Once again, I highly recommend and highly support Chief Malone for reappointment to the chief of the Indianapolis Fire Department.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. I want to make sure I did not miss anyone else. All right, very good. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call on proposal number 14?
Yes. Counselor Adamson.
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Ane.
Counselor Ane, aye.
Counselor Bain.
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth.
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots.
Boots, aye.
Counselor Brown.
Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino.
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk.
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans.
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Counselor Jared Evans.
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves.
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray.
Councilor Gray, 2 votes, aye.
Thank you. Counselor Counselor Hart.
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Counselor Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones.
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison.
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis.
Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari.
Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick.
McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry.
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osley.
Counselor Osley, aye.
Thank you. Counselor Potts.
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 59, referred to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal 59, 2021 approves the mayor's appointment of Richard Hamburger as the director of the Indianapolis Marion County Forensic Services Agency. Mr. Hamburger stated that he is honored for the opportunity to be appointed as laboratory director. Mr. Hamburger stated that he transferred to the Marion County Forensic Services Agency in 2007 from Illinois State Police as a firearms footwear examiner. He said that he was promoted to firearms section supervisor in October 2014, then promoted as chief deputy director in 2019. He's happy to serve the mayor in this appointment. Councilor Jared Evans moved, second by Councilor Barth, to send proposal 59 to the full council. The do pass recommendation, the motion carried by a vote of 12-0. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Motion then properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? All right, hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call, please, on proposal number 59?
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson.
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Ane.
Counselor Ane, aye.
Counselor Bain.
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth.
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots.
Boots, aye.
Counselor Brown.
Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino.
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk.
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans.
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Counselor Jared Evans.
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves.
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray.
Counselor Gray, aye.
Counselor Hart.
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Counselor Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones.
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison.
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis.
Counselor Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari.
Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick.
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry.
Counselor Mowry, aye.
Counselor Oliver.
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osley.
Counselor Osley, aye.
Counselor Potts.
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson.
Councilor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 65. I refer to Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. With consent, I'd like to take proposals 65 and 80 to 87, please.
Consent.
Consent.
Thank you. Proposal number 65, 2021 appoints Alexander Neanda to the Juvenile Detention Center Advisory Board. Proposal number 8080 appoints Craig Cordy to the Citizens Police Complaint Board. Proposal number 81 appoints David Bowling to the Citizens Police Complaint Board. Proposal number 82 appoints Andrea Brown to the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team. Proposal number 83 reappoints Caroline Fisher to the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team. Proposal number 84 reappoints Kelly McBride to the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Team. Proposal number 85 appoints Chesney Coleman Miller to the Marion County Community Corrections Advisory Board. Proposal number 86 appoints Anita Hall to the Marion County Community Corrections Advisory Board. And proposal number 87 appoints Brandon Randall to the Marion County Community Corrections Advisory Board. Mr. President, these all were heard in committee. All the individuals were present and spoke about their appointment, and all proposals passed a 12-0. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Second.
All right, the motions are properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? All right, hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call?
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson.
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Ane.
Counselor Ane, aye.
Counselor Bain.
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth.
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots.
Boots, aye.
Counselor Brown.
Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino.
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk.
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans.
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Counselor Jared Evans.
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves.
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray,
Counselor Gray, aye.
Counselor Hart,
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Counselor Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones,
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison,
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Counselor Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari,
Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick,
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry,
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osily,
Counselor Osili, aye.
Counselor Potts,
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 57, referred to Parks and Recreation Committee. Chairman Oliver.
Mr. McCormick, Mr. Osley, Mr. Maury was absent. Mr. Chairman, proposal number 57 was to reappoint Mr. Larry Bates to the Board of Parks and Recreation. Mr. Bates stated that he enjoyed being on the Board of Parks and Recreation, and he looked forward to getting out into the field and work with the Board of the Parks. Mr. Chairman, by Ms. Carlino, second by Mr. Larson, send proposal number 57 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. That motion was carried by a vote of 9-0. Mr. Chairman, I so move for its adoption.
Second.
All right. Motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? All right, very good. Thank you, Chairman Oliver. Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call, please? Proposal number 57.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson,
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Arnay,
Counselor Ane, aye.
Counselor Bain,
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth,
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots, Counselor Boots,
Boots, aye.
Counselor Brown,
Counselor Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino,
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk,
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans,
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Counselor Jared Evans,
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves,
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray,
Counselor Gray, aye.
Counselor Hart,
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Counselor Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones,
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison,
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Counselor Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari,
Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick,
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry,
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osily,
Counselor Osili, aye.
Counselor Potts,
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 58, referred to Parks and Recreation Committee. Chairman Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, proposal number 58, which to reappoint Mr. Joseph Wins to the Board of Park and Recreation. Mr. Wynn is known throughout our community, Central Indiana, and I've also found out that all over the country. But anyway, Mr. Wynn stated that he's excited to serve on the board, and they have some very exciting opportunities to work through. He stated that he's excited to be a part of the team, that he is an advocate for the system and has been around for a long time. Mr. President and fellow councilor, Mr. Wynn comes well suited for this position. he gets recognized all over the country by saying that he's been asked to be a consultant to various departments and areas all over the country to give his on operation and efficiencies of the parks all across the country. And to have him amongst us, to be reappointed to the board is a compliment to our city and his leadership and continue the country. Second by Mr. Jones, 58. The due pass recommendation to the full council. Mr. President, that motion was carried by a vote of 8-0. Mr. President, I so move for its adoption.
Second. Is there a second? Very good. Motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? All right, very good. Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call, please, on proposal number 58?
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson,
Aye.
Counselor Ane,
Aye.
Counselor Bain,
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth,
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots,
Boots, aye.
Counselor Brown,
Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino,
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk,
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans,
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Counselor Jared Evans,
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves,
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray,
Council Gray, aye.
Counselor Hart,
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Council Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones,
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison,
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari,
Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick,
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry,
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osley,
Counselor Osley, aye.
Counselor Potts,
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Mr. President, the vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 78, referred to Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee. Chairwoman Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. With consent, I'd like to take proposals number 78 and 79 together.
Consent.
Thank you. Proposal 78 appoints Greg Henneke to the Indianapolis City Market Corporation Board of Directors. Proposal number 79 appoints Lorenzo Gaipoli to the Indianapolis City Market Corporation Board of Directors. Both individuals were present. The proposals passed out of committee by a vote of 13-0. And Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
The motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there any comments from councilors? All right, very good. Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson,
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Ane,
Counselor Ane, aye.
Counselor Bain,
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth,
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots,
Boots, aye.
Counselor Brown,
Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino,
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk,
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans, Counselor Ethan Evans,
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Counselor Jared Evans,
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves,
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray, Counselor Gray,
Yes.
Counselor
Council Gray, aye.
Thank you. Council Hart?
Counselor Hart, aye.
Thank you. Council Jackson?
Council Jackson, aye.
Councilor Jones?
Counselor Jones, aye.
Councilor Larison?
Counselor Larison, aye.
Councilor Lewis?
Lewis, aye.
Councilor Mascari?
Mascari, aye.
Councilor McCormick?
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Councilor Mowry?
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Councilor Oliver?
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Councilor Osley?
Counselor Osley, aye.
Councilor Potts?
Counselor Potts, aye.
Councilor Robinson?
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is introduction of proposals. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal numbers 88 and 89 referred to the Administration and Finance Committee and were introduced by Councilors Osley and Adamson. Proposal number 88 reestablishes the County Cumulative Capital Development Fund for Marion County pursuant to Indiana Code 36-9-14.5. Proposal number 89 approves an additional appropriation of $19 million in the 2021 City Non-Departmental Budget Consolidated County General Fund to begin the work of design and site due diligence for projects later funded with bond proceeds. Proposal number 90, introduced by Councilors Lewis and Adamson, referred to the Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee, approves the amounts, locations, and programmatic operation of certain projects to be funded from the Community Development Grants Fund. Proposal numbers 91 through 93 refer to the Public Works Committee. Proposal number 91, introduced by Councilor Osley, authorizes intersection controls and one-way designation on 14th Street at Belmont Avenue and White River Parkway West Drive in District 11. Proposal number 92, introduced by Councilor Graves, authorizes intersection controls at Arbor Crest Drive and Esquire Place in District 13. Proposal number 93, introduced by Councilor Jared Evans, authorizes intersection controls at Manker Street and Southview Drive in District 23. Proposal number 106, introduced by Councilors Barth and Potts, referred to the Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee, adds a new chapter 812 to temporarily limit changes or charges and fees during the COVID-19 pandemic. Proposal number 107, introduced by Councilor Osley, referred to the Community Affairs Committee, reappoints John Barth to the Public Art for Neighborhoods Selection Committee. Proposal number 109, introduced by Councilor Osley, referred to the Municipal Corporations Committee, appoints Lacey Johnson to the Indianapolis Public Transportation Corporation Board of Directors. Proposal numbers 110 through 114 referred to the Metropolitan and Economic Development Committee and were introduced by Councilor Osley. Proposal number 110 reappoints Nora Spitznagel to the City Market Corporation Board of Directors. Proposal number 111 reappoints Jason Dudich to the City Market Corporation Board of Directors. Proposal number 112 reappoints Portia Bailey Bernard to the City Market Corporation Board of Directors. Proposal number 113 reappoints Barney Levengood to the City Market Corporation Board of Directors. Proposal number 114 reappoints Michael Solari to the City Market Corporation Board of Directors. Proposal number 115, introduced by Councilor Osley, referred to the Public Works Committee, reappoints Abel Contreras to the Board of Public Works. Mr. President, this concludes the introductions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is special orders priority business. Proposal numbers 96 through 105 are all rezoning ordinances certified for approval by the Metropolitan Development Commission on February 10th, 2021. If no one wishes to call any of these rezonings down for public hearing, they will pass into law. Does anyone wish to call down any of the rezonings? All right, seeing no one, proposal numbers 96 through 105, 2021 will pass into law. There is no business under special orders public hearing, so we'll now proceed to special orders unfinished business public hearing. Proposal numbers 52 through 54, 2021 were adopted by this council on February the 1st, 2021, but need ratification to comply with advertising requirements. Vice President Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me pull up the paper. In order to meet public hearing requirements of the Department of Local Government and Finance, certain fiscals, excuse me, that were acted on in an expedited manner to make COVID relief funds available still require advertising for public hearing to satisfy DLGF requirements and subsequently ratification of passage. I've been advised by General Counsel Joey Kim that the proposal numbers 52 through 54, 2021 can be ratified with one collective vote, and so with consent, Mr. President, I would like to take all of these proposals together. Do I have consent?
Consent? Oh, no.
Yes.
Yes. Is there consent?
Consent.
Consent.
Thank you.
All right.
Consent.
Please proceed, Councilor Adamson.
Thank you, councilors. I therefore move to ratify the council's vote to adopt proposals number 52 through 54, 2001 on February 1st, 2021, thereby adopting proposals 52 through 54, 2021, which have been duly advertised for public hearing as required by law at this meeting of the full council on February 22nd, 2021. I so move.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. It's been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, was there any public input on this proposal, on these proposal numbers 52 through 54?
Mr. President, there were no comments.
All right, very good. Thank you. Are there any comments by councilors? All right. Let me ask if there's anyone here in the chamber this evening with comment. Very good. Seeing no comment from councilors or anyone in the chamber, Madam Clerk, I will ask for a roll call vote on proposal numbers 52 through 54.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Adamson.
Councilor Adamson, aye.
Thank you. Councilor Ane.
Counselor May, aye.
Councilor Bain.
Councilor Bain, aye.
Councilor Barth.
Barth, aye.
Councilor Boots. Councilor Boots.
Boots, aye.
Thank you. Councilor Brown.
Brown, aye.
Councilor Carlino.
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Councilor Dilk.
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Councilor Ethan Evans.
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Councilor Jared Evans.
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Councilor Graves.
Councilor Graves, aye.
Councilor Gray.
Councilor Gray, aye.
Councilor Hart.
Counselor Hart, aye.
Councilor Jackson.
Council Jackson, aye.
Councilor Jones.
Counselor Jones, aye.
Councilor Larison.
Councilor Larison, aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Lewis, aye.
Councilor Mascari.
Mascari, aye.
Councilor McCormick.
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Councilor Mowry.
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Councilor Oliver.
Councilor Oliver, aye.
Councilor Osley.
Councilor Osley, aye.
Councilor Potts.
Councilor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson?
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now proceed to special orders, final adoption. And the next item on our agenda is proposal number 56, referred to Metropolitan Economic Development Committee. Chairwoman Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 56 authorizes the issuance of an Indiana Economic Development Revenue Refunding Bond in a maximum aggravated principal amount not to exceed $82,500,000 to achieve interest savings for the city by amending the terms of the 2011 Cityway Project Bond proceeds loan due to COVID-19 without committing additional city funds in District 16 and 17. Sarah Reardon, Executive Director, Indianapolis Local Public Improvement Bond Bank, gave a presentation making these key points regarding the purpose of this proposal. It is to take advantage of the lower interest rates compared to the 2011 A bonds to create near-term market-driven economic savings, provide relief to the consolidated downtown TIF, allow market recovery from COVID-19 downturn by extending the due date of the 2011 promissory note. The proposal passed out of committee by a vote of 13-0, and Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
All right, the motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Very good. Seeing none, then Madam Clerk, I would ask for a roll call.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson?
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Ane?
Counselor Ane, aye.
Counselor Bain?
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth?
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots?
I abstain due to my employer's involvement in this project.
Thank you. Counselor Brown?
Counselor Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino?
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk?
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans?
Evans, nay.
Counselor Jared Evans?
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves?
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray?
Counselor Gray, aye.
Counselor Hart?
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson?
Council Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones?
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison?
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis?
Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari?
Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick?
McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry?
Counselor Mowry, aye.
Counselor Oliver?
Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osley?
Counselor Osley, aye.
Counselor Robinson?
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Ethan Evans, could you repeat your vote, please?
Nay.
Thank you. Mr. President, I have 22 yay, 1 nay, 1 abstention. Yeah, that's it.
Very good. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 60, referred to Public Works Committee. Chairman Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Proposal number 60. Oh, with consent, I'd like to take proposal number 60 and 61 together.
Consent.
Thank you. Proposal number 60, 2021, authorizes weight limit restrictions on Richland Street from Oliver Avenue to McCarthy Street in District 16. Proposal number 61 authorizes a speed limit reduction to 25 miles per hour in the Graves, Sylvan Ridge, and Sweetwater Estates subdivision in District 3. Councilor McCormick moves, seconded by Councilor Oliver, to send proposal number 60 and 61 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. And that motion carried by a vote of 10-0, and I so move.
Second.
All right, the motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? All right, hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you do the roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson,
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Ane,
Counselor O'Neill, aye.
Counselor Bain,
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth,
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots, Counselor Boots, Counselor Brown,
Counselor Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino,
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk,
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Counselor Ethan Evans,
Counselor Ethan Evans, aye.
Counselor Jared Evans,
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Counselor Graves,
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray,
Counselor Gray, aye.
Counselor Hart,
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson,
Counselor Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones,
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison,
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis,
Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari,
Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick,
McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mowry,
Counselor Mowry, aye.
Counselor Oliver,
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osily,
Counselor Osily, aye.
Counselor Potts,
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson,
Counselor Robinson, aye.
thank you, Counselor Boots,
Madam Clerk, I do believe that Counselor Boots is having audio difficulties,
okay,
but he's indicated by a thumbs up that he is a vote for an aye.
thank you, Mr. President, the vote is unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is proposal number 76, referred to Rules and Public Policy Committee. Counselor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Rules and Public Policy Committee met on Tuesday, February 9th, 2021 via electronic communications. Chair Ostley called the meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. with the following members present. Councilors Ane, Boots, Brown, Dilk, Gray, Hart, Jackson, Lewis, Mowry, and Robinson. Proposal 76, 2021 was heard. It amends Chapter 231 of the Code regarding protections for the homeless. Chairman Ostley stated that this proposal strikes a balance between reaffirming the city's commitment to protecting the dignity of our homeless neighbors and the need to make sure that our city's public spaces are clean and accessible for all residents and visitors. He stated that it reaffirms the Bill of Rights of provisions laid out with the previous ordinance adopted by the council. Chairman Ostley asked Councilor Robinson, co-author of Proposal 76, and the original sponsor of Proposal 231, if he had any additional comments. Councilor Robinson stated that this amendment provides additional clarity and cleans up specific sections of the original proposal with the intent of making the city of Indianapolis safe, healthy, and clean, while improving the quality of life for our homeless neighbors, residents, and visitors. Matt Giffen, Director of the Office of Public Health and Safety, gave a detailed description of the proposal. Dr. Virginia Kane, Director of the Marion County Public Health Department, Tim Brown, Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs and General Counsel for the Indy Chamber, Dr. Chelsea Herring-Cozy, Executive Director of the Coalition for Homeless Intervention and Prevention, CHIP, Doug Stevenson, owner of Downtown Comics, and Greg Byers, owner of Windsor Jewelry, all spoke in favor of Proposal 76. Councilor Boots moved, seconded by Councilor Robinson, to send Proposal 76, 2021 to the full council with a due pass recommendation. The motion was carried by a vote of 11-0. Mr. President, I so move.
Second.
Thank you. The motion's been properly moved and seconded. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have an amendment on proposal 76, if you would mind, please.
Please.
Mr. President, I think each of the councilors do have a copy of the amendment, and I'd like to read it in its entirety. So please bear with me. Mr. President, I'd like to motion to amend proposal 76, 2021. Move to amend sections 1 and 2 of the proposal by deleting the language that is double stricken through and adding the double underlined language in the highlighted portions. Mr. President, we'll skip down to section 231, 502, number 3, and where it says other circumstances exist that present a significant threat to the public health or safety. We're going to add highlighted section as documented by the process required in section 231-506 below. And we will continue to skip down to the second page under letter F. We'll skip to the third sentence where it says the term may include safe camping sites, and we're going to add or below barrier shelters or low barrier shelters. Once again, in line number 3, sentence 3, we're going to add or low barrier shelters. In section 231-503, in that first paragraph, we're going to include the language in the third line where it says, but only if, and we're adding OPHS follows the procedures described below, and sufficient temporary housing or shelter space is available for residents who will be displaced by the closure. We're going to delete and strike through such action is subject to the requirements described below, and we're going to add OPHS will reach a memorandum of understanding or agreement with the Blueprint Council of Indianapolis Continuum of Care to designate partner entities for roles in the notice and outreach procedures described below. And we continue to paragraph B, and the first 4, 5, 6 sentences are stricken through. We'll skip to before OPHS may displace a person from the established camp, at least 15 days advance notice must be given to the affected person. And we're going to strike through to an entity designated by the Blueprint Council of Indianapolis Continuum of Care. And to designate it, we're going to add service providers and street team outreach teams. And we're going to strike through in the next 2 sentences to an entity designated by the Blueprint Council of Indianapolis Continuum of Care, and we're going to add designated service providers. And in paragraph C, up on, we're going to strike through receiving and include the word providing, the notice described in subsection B, and we're going to strike out an entity designated by the Blueprint Council of Indianapolis Continuum of Care, or a similar organization designated by the city, and we're going to include OPHS, which is the Office of Public Health and Safety. And we're going to skip to letter D, and we're going to include OPHS, or designated partner entity, will gather and maintain accurate data on the number of people impacted by camp closures and the resources offered to affected individuals. OPHS and service providers will monitor data to ensure that racial equity considerations guide OPHS actions and outreach efforts. And Mr. President, we're going to skip down to section 231-505, safe camping sites. And we're going to skip to the second sentence, and we're going to include the highlighted portion. The study process will include input from service providers and individuals with lived experiences of homelessness. And we're going to skip to the bottom of that section where it says OPH is directed to report its findings to the council on or before. I'm going to strike through July. I'm going to include the month of September 1st, 2021. Under 231-506, declaration of emergency, we're going to skip to paragraph B and skip to the second to last sentence where it says the continuum of care. We're going to strike out the continuum of care, and we're going to add the words service providers in that section. And Mr. President, we're going to skip all the way down to section 231-508, designated charitable distribution sites. We're going to skip to letter B, where it says OPHS will act in consultation with. I'm going to strike out an entity designated by the Blueprint Council of the Indianapolis Continuum of Care. We'll strike that out of that section. And we're going to skip down to section C, number 1. We're going to strike out that first, if intended to donate prepared food items, donor individuals, organizations will be allowed to participate in planned and coordinated distribution and designated sites only if they have complied with Marion County Public Health Department requirements. That entire sentence will be stricken out. And we're going to include the city will ensure that all Marion County Public Health Department code requirements and public health orders are in place. We're going to include that section. And Mr. President, that concludes the motion to amend, and I so move.
Second.
Very good. Very good.
Mr. President, one quick comment.
Yes, Chairman Robinson.
Again, thank you for seconding the motion, whoever that was. So, Mr. President, just so the committee knows, the council knows, and those watching.
Oliver seconded that motion.
Thank you, Councilor Oliver. Those amendments came for extensive conversations with our service providers, the Blueprint Council, a team of CARE, CHIP, our faith-based community members, a variety of different individuals who were in meetings with us over the last several weeks where this input came in. So we asked them to provide us input. We asked them to provide us guidance, again, because they're the experts in this space, not us. And this is the advice they came back to us with during our meetings to provide input. And these are the recommended changes that we're including in this amendment. So with that, Mr. President, I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The motion's been properly moved and seconded. Are there comments from councilors? Councilor Ethan Evans.
Thank you, President Wesley. I just like to reiterate, I definitely am supportive of any efforts to help people being getting them as much transitional housing, getting them the services that are required or needed in our community to help transition from homelessness to housing. At this time, when I've vocalized my concerns beforehand, I feel that it goes too much for me into the enforcement aspect first, and then follows up with the reports back on the safe camping sites and the charitable distribution sites that we would wait until July to find out those, whereas the first things that are implemented are the permanent camp closures and the obstruction of right-of-way implementations, which would be implemented as soon as this gets passed in February. Whereas 5 months down the road, we would have the studies back on the safe camping sites and the charitable distribution sites. So for me, I would not feel comfortable supporting it as it's written. I would like to see more focus on funding distributions towards the permanent supportive housing, towards people getting individual housing instead of just the camping, the shelter, etc. So I do support the service aspect, the service providers. However, it's the other aspects of it that I wouldn't be able to get behind. So for that reason, I would not be supporting it at this time. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councilor. Additional comments from councilors?
Mr. President, Councilor Ane would like to say something.
Yes, please, Councilor Ane.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was supportive of this proposal when it came through the committee. I had not had an opportunity to read the amendments or see the amendments until they were just read. So I would like to see this go back to the committee. I'm not necessarily against the amendments. I just haven't had time to properly and thoughtfully review them. And so I think that them pushing back the date, I think from July to September, would give this body and the committee more than enough time to have an opportunity to thoughtfully review them. So I'm going to have to be a no tonight because I think it should go through the committee process prior to a final vote.
Very good. Additional comments from councilors? Vice President Adams.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think I'm inclined to with Councilor. I'm still trying to get my head around a lot of that. I would like to maybe see a more thorough vetting of what all that means. So I don't know if that's the point that we're at now to make a motion to send it back to committee or not. We'd have to ask Council Kim if that's the place where I know we've got a motion that's been seconded on the amendment. So I'm not sure where we are with that.
Additional comments from councilors?
Mr. President?
Yes. Chairman Robinson.
Just for clarity, are we at the point where we are, did Councilor Arnay put a motion on the floor to send it back to the committee, or are we still on the amendment?
We were still, I don't think there was not a motion on the floor to send it back. So we are still on the amendment.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I think that was my question, was whether or not this is a place where we could make a motion to send it back to committee to hear the full amendment and the deliberative process. Can Council?
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Anderson, would you like to make that motion to recommit to a committee?
Thank you very much, Council Kim. I would like to make a motion to send back, with the President's permission, proposal 76 back to the Rules and Public Policy Committee for their next scheduled committee hearing to be able to more thoroughly vet and consider this amendment.
Mr. President, if that's the case, that takes precedence over the motion to amend.
Second.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I respectfully ask that our council would just take a moment. At our last committee hearing, the public health director, Dr. Kane, stated that this is far too long in coming, because one of the service providers has stated the same thing. They wanted to delay a little bit longer, and Dr. Kane was adamant about the need for this proposal last year. This has been in the discussion in the hopper for quite a while, and the delay came up during the Rules Committee meeting, and she was pretty adamant that the need for this proposal was 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago. So I would just ask that the council members this evening would consider what Dr. Kane stated at that meeting. It's on the record, and let's move forward with this proposal this evening and not send it back to the committee and not delay it any further. Again, this is something that we think will help our homeless neighbors out. We work with the stakeholders and the professionals in the field. We just ask that this evening, if you just give us proposal a chance to move forward this evening, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. It's been properly moved and seconded. Additional comments on the request to send back? Vice President Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have been looking through my mail, and I don't even see a copy of the amendment. So that's partially why I was kind of taken by surprise by it. And I think there was so much in there. I had trouble just keeping it up with all of the jumping around all the different places that were getting amended, that I was having trouble even trying to understand fully what this amendment does as it compares to the original that came out of committee. And that's why I think it might be good. I agree 100% with both Chairman Robinson and Dr. Kane that a lot of these measures are overdue and needed. But without fully understanding what this amendment does to this proposal, living and representing a district that is impacted by a lot of our homeless neighbors, I'd like to make sure that we're not making sure that we have effective policy that involves the rest of our community. So with that, I would ask our fellow councilors to support this, sending it back to committee.
Right. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And again, respectfully, I do like to thank Councilor Vice President for his comment. I would say that in reading the amendment, it is kind of choppy, kind of jumpy, Mr. Vice President. So I think that we have Mr. Giffen from OPHS on the call. If he could kind of walk through the specifics on what we're changing in this proposal, I think it'd be helpful. Because again, reading the amendment, I do agree, Mr. Vice President, it's kind of choppy. I think that Mr. Giffen from OPHS has the amendment and the talking points spelled out a little bit more clear way. So hopefully that will do some service to this amendment and this proposal. Mr. President, with your permission, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Director Giffen.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Robinson. I'm happy to walk through the amendment. And I'll just give kind of a summary. As Chairman Robinson said, this amendment came primarily from input from the Blueprint Council of the Indianapolis Continuum of Care and the service providers and partners and community members that are a part of that council, which helps coordinate homelessness and housing policy for Marion County. And I'd say there's three really substantive parts to this amendment. The first one that shows up in section 503 in a couple of different parts is just to make clear that OPHS needs to do some legwork after this ordinance is passed to come up with a protocol, or as the amendment says, a memorandum of understanding with members of the Blueprint Council and the service provider community to make sure that there is an accurate kind of blow-by-blow plan for what happens in the event that there is a camp closure. What notice goes to whom in the service provider community, even before the 15-day notice goes out to camp residents, who is coordinating the outreach and resource provision to residents of the camp, and who is providing things like wraparound services and transportation options. The members of the council felt that it was important that those be committed to a separate, more thorough discussion rather than attempting to spell it out or throw it just onto the Blueprint Council in the ordinance itself. So that explains the wording changes primarily in section 503. The other big set of changes is to make sure that as much input as possible from members of the community is being brought to bear, and that racial equity considerations, among other things, are being considered. So if you look at section 503D, there's now a requirement that OPHS keep track of the number of people who are impacted by potential camp closures, and in particular track demographic data and make sure that racial equity considerations are taken into effect. As well, in the safe camping sites portion, which is section 505, it makes clear that OPHS, when it's doing the feasibility and cost study for a low barrier shelter or a safe camping site, that it needs to include the input from service providers and from individuals with lived experience of homelessness, people who can understand on a personal level what it's like to be living on the street and be in camping sites. And then the final change, this substantive, is also in section 505, which is to push back the reporting date on the safe camping site low barrier shelter feasibility study to September 1st. That was done for a specific reason. It was because we have a process in the works for a cost study, and we want to make sure that we are giving that adequate time to play out and that we're not in a position where we have to rush something come July 1st. So we want to make sure that there's ample time for that study to be done right. That is the essence of the changes. There's a couple of other minor wording changes. One other one I'll mention in section 508, the last section of the ordinance, that it's just a change to simplify the language and make it clear that there's not any kind of new requirement being imposed on people at designated charitable distribution sites about the public health code. It's just that people who are giving out charitable distributions need to comply with the existing health code. And there was some feedback that was confusing or that people didn't understand what that meant. So that part has been simplified just to make sure that it reads more simply.
Very good. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, President Osu. Thank you, Director Giffen. So again, Mr. Vice President, Councilor Ney, these changes honestly are from those individuals that are experts in this space. Again, we went to the Blueprint Council, we went to the Continuum of Care, we went and worked with Dr. Chelsea Herring-Cosing, who was the director of the CHIP, Council of Homeless Intervention and Prevention. We went to the experts So these are what they recommended to us. We went to them over the course of several meetings, President Osteen and I, and spoke to them and asked them for their input, changes, edits. And again, they're the experts. We apologize for coming to them a little bit late in the process, but again, they accepted that. They gave us recommendations. They gave us edits, and these came through last week to us. So again, these are the experts. These are the ones that are working in this space far more than we are. We are hoping that their recommendations are sufficient for this committee and this group. But again, these are the folks that work in this field, that are experts, that are doctors in this space. Dr. Herring Cozy from CHIP, Dr. Kane from Eskenazi Health and Hospital. But again, these are the ones recommending that we move forward, and these are the ones who provided the information for this amendment. So again, I would ask our colleagues this evening to listen to the voices and the improvements from the experts, and do not send this back to committee. Let's pass it tonight and implement it into our city. Thank you.
Councilor Carlino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do agree with Chairman Robinson. I do just want to say for my colleagues that in our agenda packet, this is the last item that was sent to us around 2 o'clock this afternoon. So we did have it a couple hours beforehand, and I do appreciate Mr. Giffen's thorough explanation. And I would urge my colleagues to consider the sense of urgency with regard to this proposal, and I will be supporting this evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you very much. Councilor Carlino.
Mr. President,
All
just
right.
one moment, if you don't mind, Councilor Arnay.
Oh, please.
I just want to thank Director Giffen and Chairman Robinson and Councilor Carlino, and I just want to express that I'm not asking to postpone this and send it back to committee because I don't support it. I just think that we need to make sure that we've, at least in my opinion, thoughtfully reviewed it. And I know Dr. Kane did say that it was important to get this passed, but with the extensive amount of revisions and amendments that have been done, I just think that it would be better suited to wait a few more weeks, go through the committee process. I don't anticipate there would be much issues, but it would just give us more time to thoughtfully review it, and then hopefully would bring it back next month to be able to pass it in a unanimous way. That's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Renee. Any additional comments from councilors? Vice President Adamson.
Thank you, Mr. President. What does the time frame look like? Is there any reason why we couldn't, especially since we waited a year, would 1 month just for due diligence sake really be that much of an impediment to this process? Is that all we're talking about is a month to implementation?
I would ask Mr. Giffen. I think my only thought is every time that we delay it, it actually pushes back implementation of some action going forward. And I also just want to be clear that the 2 o'clock, I think the 2 o'clock, the latest amendment was an amendment, I think that was added by one of the service providers. I think we had something beforehand. And that the folks that we have met with have been incredibly helpful in putting together the language. I would say that they've been neutral on all that we have done, but put together the language that we could move forward with on this proposal, on Proposal 76. But I would ask Director Giffen if he had any particular comments.
Thank you, President Osley. I defer to Ms. Kim on the exact implications for timing of when this would come back up for final passage and go through the committee process again. I'll just say on the substance of the proposal, pushing back things would push back every step of this kind of interlocking process that we intend to be engaged in here, including the feasibility and cost study for safe camping sites and low barrier shelters, as well as some timing considerations that we have to take into account with respect to a lot of the programs that we already have ongoing, including hotel housing programs that we intend to be operating as kind of a bridge to whatever comes next for low barrier shelter options. So delay would impose some logistical costs. It would certainly complicate the math for us in implementation. I guess a shorter delay is better than a longer delay, but from OPHS's perspective, we would prefer no delay.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Beekman. Any additional comments from councilors? All right, seeing none, I will ask Madam Clerk for a roll call on the request to send this back to committee. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Adamson.
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Councilor Ane.
Counselor Ane, aye.
Councilor Bain.
Counselor Bain, aye.
Councilor Barth.
We're voting on the amendment, correct?
This is to rescind to committee.
Oh, okay. Barth, no.
Councilor Boots.
Boots, nay.
Councilor Brown.
Counselor Brown, nay.
Councilor Carlino.
Counselor Carlino, nay.
Councilor Dilk.
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Councilor Ethan Evans.
Councilor Ethan Evans, nay. Not here. Oh, sorry. Councilor Ethan Evans, nay.
Thank you. Councilor Jared Evans.
Counselor Jared Evans, nay.
Councilor Graves.
Counselor Graves, nay.
Councilor Gray.
Nay. Council Gray, nay.
Thank you. Councilor Hart.
Counselor Hart, aye.
Councilor Jackson.
Counselor Jackson, nay.
Councilor Jones.
Counselor Jones, aye.
Councilor Larison.
Counselor Larison, nay.
Councilor Lewis.
Nay.
Councilor Mascari.
Mascari, nay.
Councilor McCormick.
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Councilor Mowry.
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Councilor Oliver.
Counselor Oliver, nay.
Councilor Osley.
Councilor Osley, nay.
Councilor Potts.
Counselor Potts, nay.
Councilor Robinson.
Councilor Robinson, nay.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 16 nay, 8 yay.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So now we return to our vote on the amendment as read by Chairman Robinson. Are there additional comments? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you do a roll call, please, on the amendment as read to proposal number 76?
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilor Adamson.
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Councilor Ane.
Ane, aye.
Councilor Bain.
Counselor Bain, aye.
Councilor Barth.
Barth, aye.
Councilor Boots.
Boots, aye.
Councilor Brown.
Brown, aye.
Councilor Carlino.
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Councilor Dilk.
Counselor Dilk, aye.
Councilor Ethan Evans.
Councilor Ethan Evans, aye.
Councilor Jared Evans.
Counselor Jared Evans, aye.
Councilor Graves.
Counselor Graves, aye.
Councilor Gray.
Council Gray, aye.
Councilor Hart.
Counselor Hart, aye.
Councilor Jackson.
Counselor Jackson, aye.
Councilor Jones.
Counselor Jones, aye.
Councilor Larison.
Counselor Larison, aye.
Councilor Lewis.
Aye.
Councilor Mascari.
Mascari, aye.
Councilor McCormick.
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Councilor Mowry.
Counselor Mallory, aye.
Councilor Oliver.
Counselor Oliver, aye.
Councilor Osley.
Councilor Osley, aye.
Councilor Potts.
Counselor Potts, aye.
Councilor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. So now we will, unless there are no additional comments, I would like to do a roll call on proposal number 76 as amended. Chairman Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to make one final statement on proposal 76. It's a lot to balance to my colleagues and those in the audience. It's a lot to balance the needs of our homeless neighbors, the faith-based community, the service providers, the downtown business owners, and elected officials. So as President Ochi and I was navigating this proposal, again, we have to consider homeless neighbors first. Again, the downtown businesses, our homeless providers, our faith-based folks, your thoughts. So again, it was a lot to navigate, the mayor's administration. So again, we're navigating that, all with the hopes of making Indianapolis a great place, not just downtown, but for everyone throughout the city, and most importantly for our homeless neighbors though. So we'd ask you all to support this proposal 76 as we move forward. We have all hands on deck. The service providers are ready to go. Our downtown businesses are ready to support and finance some of these needs. Just ask you all to help us support this proposal tonight and get it passed and get it into operation for our city, make our city a great city, not only downtown though, but throughout Marion County. Thank you, Mr. President.
Very good. If there are no additional comments, then I will ask Madam Clerk to do a roll call on proposal number 76 as amended. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Counselor Adamson.
Counselor Adamson, aye.
Counselor Arnay.
Counselor Arnay will be a nay. I believe if it would have went back through committee, I could have supported it and look forward to further discussions, but tonight I'll have to be a nay.
Thank you. Counselor Bain.
Counselor Bain, aye.
Counselor Barth.
Barth, aye.
Counselor Boots.
Boots, aye.
Counselor Brown.
Brown, aye.
Counselor Carlino.
Counselor Carlino, aye.
Counselor Dilk.
Counselor Dilk, nay.
Counselor Ethan Evans.
Counselor Ethan Evans, nay.
Counselor Jared Evans.
Counselor Jared Evans, yay.
Counselor Graves.
Counselor Graves, aye.
Counselor Gray.
Counselor Gray, aye.
Counselor Hart.
Counselor Hart, aye.
Counselor Jackson.
Counselor Jackson, aye.
Counselor Jones.
Counselor Jones, aye.
Counselor Larison.
Counselor Larison, aye.
Counselor Lewis.
Counselor Lewis, aye.
Counselor Mascari.
Counselor Mascari, aye.
Counselor McCormick.
Counselor McCormick, aye.
Counselor Mallory.
Counselor Mallory, I will be agreeing with Counselor Nay, and I think if I could have had this go back to committee and actually had a chance to digest this a little bit, I could probably be supportive, but just in the short notice, I'll be a nay.
Thank you. Counselor Oliver.
Dr. Oliver, aye.
Counselor Osley.
Counselor Osley, aye.
Counselor Potts.
Counselor Potts, aye.
Counselor Robinson.
Counselor Robinson, aye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 20 yay, 4 nay.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Hughes, or excuse me, Clerk Hughes, I wanted to make sure that I said yay. I should have said aye. I want to make sure that came across clear.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. There is no business under Special Service District Council, and there is no business under new business. So the next item on our agenda is announcements and adjournment. The docketed agenda for this meeting of council having been completed, the chair will now entertain motions for adjournment.
Mr. President.
The chair recognizes Councilor Mowry.
Mr. President, I've been asked to offer the following motion for adjournment. by Counselor Lewis in memory of Wilma L. Jones, Wilma Kidd, Violet Joyce Chasteen, and Gwendolyn T. Cranford. By Counselor Osley in memory of Brian Boyd and Karen Denise Harrell. Mr. President, I would like to move the adjournment of this meeting of the Indianapolis City County Council in recognition of and respect for the life and contributions of those persons I have here specifically named. I respectfully ask the support of fellow councilors. I further request the motion be made part of the permanent records of the body of, and that a letter bearing the council seal and the signature of the president be sent to the family of each person advising of this action.
Thank you, Councilor Murray. Hearing no objections, the motion is received and the request is so ordered. Hearing no further motions, we are adjourned. Thank you, councilors.
Good night.